a lot farther, remember. All right, so again, thank you for coming to our conservation quarterly. We are obviously here for talk about regenerative and farming, so excited to hear about that. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping slides, things I want to throw out there, so we'll go through that and we'll hand it off to Monte and we'll enjoy our sandwiches and have a good time. So for some Zoom housekeeping, those are online. If you have any questions, please enter that in the chat as we go, answer them at the end. If you have any technical difficulties, then, oh, that's a technical. Good thing we have someone here for that. I'm just gonna. Wait a second.
There you go.
Okay. I don't think it's sharing them. Thank you guys on Zoom for holding tight. Not quite sure why we lost you there. Okay. We'll try it again. At least it happened on the Zoom slide, right? That was fitting. Okay. So coming back here, now that we've got that sorted out, this is being recorded and we'll edit out our little snafu there. And it'll be available online on the Partners Scott County Watershed's YouTube page in about a week or so if you wanted to go back and reference something or share it with somebody you know who couldn't be here. So we've got a couple more events coming up in the fall here. So there is a cleanup happening in LeClaire, and actually I believe it's September 16th. I entered the wrong number in there. So that's Saturday. Taking out the trash actually in the creek in LeClaire. There's the fall snapshot or water quality monitoring event on October 3rd, and the last conservation quarterly of the year in November. So save the date, save it on your Facebook calendar, or just watch for the many emails that I'm sure that will come to remind you of these events. And we have to, of course, thank Iowa American Water, who sponsored all of the conservation quarterlies this year. And the reason that you're able to have cookies and sandwiches and things. So we're really appreciative of them. And finally, if you want to help out and participate in Partners Beyond today, there's lots of ways to do that. I'll let you take your time to read that, or it's all on the Partners in Scott County Watershed's website if you want to learn more. Okay, and I think with that, now that Zoom's cooperating, ready to hand it over. So go ahead and get to the good part of this presentation.
No guarantees.
All right.
Can we move that stuff at the top, hide it or not?
This stuff?
Yeah.
It should go up in a moment.
Okay.
And hide away.
Sounds good.
If it doesn't, I'll fix it.
You'll fix it? All right.
I'll do my best to fix it.
You sneak around here.
And here's.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it, Kelsey. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for letting me onto this side of the river, because I know water quality issues are only of concern in Scott County, correct? But no, I really appreciate being here, and the sandwiches were good. So if you're in Zoom land, you should have been here. Located in Cambridge, Henry County, we're right on the water divide, essentially between the Illinois River, the Mississippi River, and the Edwards River. So we have water that flows in all directions from there. But a little bit of my background, 5th generation farmer, about 30 minutes here from the Quad Cities. We have done a lot of work in no-till, advanced crop nutrition practices, cover crops. Rich and I have been to how many cover crop meetings together? He's been to 10x the cover crop meetings of me. But, Rich was a real proponent in getting cover crops started 10 years ago here in this area and still continues to do that. But now I get a chance to go around and visit with folks and educate other farmers and other people who are interested in food, which is everybody. We all have to eat, about what we can do with soil health to improve human health and all the plant and animal health in between. This is our farm. There's Kiwani, Geneseo. So right about this Route 81 is the water divide. So a lot of our land goes into the Green River, eventually the Mississippi River. And it exits just right across from the marsh there at the Rock River confluence with the Mississippi. This water here will typically go to, I believe, Illinois. This one goes to the entrance. So we have 3 different places that we're emitting water from. This is the original home farm. That hill is roughly a 50-acre hill. And when we came, we broke the prairie using a what?
Wow.
A plow. So not only did John Deere invent the self-scouring plow, he also invented massive amounts of erosion. That's true. So we realized that everything that's been done in the past, we have legacy results of today. So all good decisions in the past, I benefit from 5 generations on that land. All bad decisions, I also have a negative impact. So right up there where that cow just had a calf, that you can see that's a thinner hillside. Over the 3 years prior to grazing, we would raise hardly no corn and soybeans on there because the A's horizon, the B horizon is gone. That's just chalky whiteness there. But after 3 years of cover crops and integrated grazing, we actually can get a yield off of there and at the same time keep it covered and avoid erosion. But we have not been able to do that with cover crops alone. And I find that to be really, really interesting because I thought I was a corn and soybean farmer. What's these 4-legged things? So what I learned and what we try to focus on our farm is on the 5 soil health principles. Now, there's a group out there that says there's 6. There's another group that says there's 4. The person that originally penned them from the NRCS said there was 5. So I'm going to stick with 5. And what I've found over time, and here's what we've implemented on our farm at various dates. But even if I minimize disturbance, in other words, less inputs, no till, not doing anything to the ground. If I keep the soil covered with residues and a green living crop, and if I keep something growing all the time, it's 32 degrees or above, so there's a cover crop growing all the time out there, whether we have a corn or a bean crop growing or not. And if I try to integrate small grains and other crops other than, did you know there's something other than corn and soybeans out here? Hard to imagine, right? If I do all 4 of those, I can get about 1/10 to 0.2% organic matter per year per acre. So when there's 2 million pounds per acre, it's a lot of carbon in the soil, okay? But if I integrate livestock on top of that, it doubles the effect of the carbon capture into the soil. So I can gain about 0.4% organic matter per year doing all 5 together. Is that pretty wild? That's not supposed to happen, right? All the soil scientists will say that doesn't happen. So I guess we have an anomaly. So here's some of the production practices we're doing on our farm, trying to maximize those first 4 things on there, the first 4 principles. Okay, we're only putting nutrients on at planting or after. We're actually doing double crops in there where we have double crop soybeans on the flat ground. We have summer cover crops on the grazing ground or on the hilly ground for grazing. We like to plant in the high residue situations there in the upper right. Okay, that's no-till corn into massive cover crops. We do 60-inch rows, so we can plant cover crops between 60-inch rows of corn. So something always growing, because in about 3 weeks, guess what? Right now, there's no carbon going to roots in corn. It's done. It's not adding any more carbon to the soil. So if we don't have a cover crop growing in there to relay that carbon capture, we're not improving the soil, because every % of organic matter increase holds an acre inch of water. If it holds an acre inch of water, What does that mean?
Less erosion.
Exactly. That's low quality runoff. Because the carbon will also filter that runoff. It buffers it, improves infiltration rates, and it slows the release to the water, the entire watershed, okay? When we had a functioning landscape of a tall grass prairie, oak hickory savanna, we get massive rains, it stayed, and it trickled down. Beaver dams, massive residues, all these things out here had this functioning ecosystem to where we didn't have these big surges and collapses. Thank you, I'm poking random buttons over here.
I'm hoping that.
Now today,
Here.
our soil is not functioning anywhere like it used to. So we get rather rapid things.
Sorry.
Now she's wanting me to move along. So.
Sorry.
No.
There, I got it to go away.
Oh, you did. Good job. Thank you for the help, Kelsey. So now I just have to be able to use. Is there be really cool if this part worked. Okay. There we go. So the other thing we're working on is soybeans and wheat growing together. Because soybeans, once you harvest them, you get that first rain after harvest, you really need to back up your water quality check to about November 1. You won't like the nitrate load you see then. Because all the nitrates after that first inch of rainfall are released out of the soybean stubble, and guess where they go? Directly
Into the water.
to the water. And that's not anything to do with fertilizer application. That's just leaching for plant residues. Okay. We also do cover cropping here with integrated, we're using GPS to plant between skipped rows of covers to where we get good use of a good quality yield, but also keep the soil protected. And we've got equipment we've built that will actually go through and plant within a standing crop. This is how we plant our corn and soybeans. We only put on 70% of the nitrogen of a typical farmer. We put on about 30% of the phosphorus and 30% of the potassium. And the first time it goes in the field is when the planter rolls about the 1st of May. Okay. You guys ever see these big white things and tractors going through the field? You know what that is? And hydrous ammonium. When do they put that on? In the fall, right? Once it hits 50 degrees, soil temperature is 50 degrees. We're good, responsible stewards. But then it goes up above 50 degrees and the co-op just keeps going because they got acres to cover. But when is that nitrogen actually utilized by the plant if it's put on in October?
Next year.
June.
June.
That's a long, long time of risk. So we don't like to risk that. So that's our first application is what we're doing right there. Next thing is we do not high definition, but that sounds cool, high diversity cover crops on every acre every year. Key benefits, obviously we do it for erosion. We do it for water infiltration because rain's precious. With the rains that we got this year on May 7th, if you didn't infiltrate it, guess when the next time was you got a rain? June 29th. It was a long period of time there. So when somebody asks me how much rain did I get, I like to say all of it. It don't matter how much rain falls on your land if it goes down the watershed. Here I am a little more planting into those corridors like I was telling you about. I'm really excited about this wheat bean intercrop thing that we've got going on. The biggest reason I'm excited about it is the stubble. I should have a clicker. Darn it.
You got too excited too, huh?
Oh, this has got enough buttons on it to control the enterprise. So
Right.
we're getting there.
You want me to click for you?
No,
Okay.
I'll be fine. Just, I'm sorry, those in Zoom land won't be able to see my face that's made for radio. Okay. We're loading sometime. So I think this is really promising because the increase in soil carbon we're getting out of the wheat crop, and also it has an immediate way to buffer the release of the nitrogens out of the soybean residues. this is a huge win for water quality and for the farmer, because you can get 2 crops per acre per year. So that's all great, right? And all I just talked to you about there was just some farming practices we're improving. Okay? But it's kind of the same old, same old. We're just making things a little bit incrementally better. And this is one of my favorite quotes. You know, we just, you know, we didn't come up with the light bulb by making candles better. So I think it's important to realize that in agriculture, I really think we need to make a new moonshot, a new paradigm of agriculture production. And this is when it really hit me. Okay. You're probably thinking, okay, there's 2 eggs in a pan, right? What difference does that make? Well, the one on the left is one of those eggs that has everything that you can possibly imagine on the carton label, you know, certified humane, organic, free range, cage free. I mean, they had to make the carton better to have all the marketing claims on it, right? You've seen those in the store. They make so many claims. The one on the right is from regeneratively raised mobile pastured eggs. In other words, the hens are free range on the pasture. They move the house every day, constantly improving the soil, but at the same time, it's improving the quality of the food. So I'm like, I can see a difference. So I decided to go visit Gabe Brown's ranch. He's a leader in the regenerative agriculture movement up in Bismarck, North Dakota. Got to see his cows doing their thing, moving every day to fresh grass. Has about a 800 head cow herd that he moves. These were some of the finisher group right here. We went around, we dug into cover crops. This is Gabe and my wife. We were digging in the soil and seeing just some amazing things. So 11% organic matter. Now I realize a lot of you are probably familiar with soil here, but I'm going to pick on Rich because I know he is for sure. 11% organic matter. Is that pretty good? Yes. Outstanding. Okay, flat black, perfect Iowa, perfect. Okay, Scott County is one of the best production counties in Iowa. Flat black. What do we got for organic matter here? Maybe 3. That's right. And that 3 is primarily old organic matter because we're not contributing anything today. It's legacy organic matter from the past. We're dealing with 25% of the original organic matter carbon content of this area. Okay. So it's a dysfunctional soil. But when I saw that, this is the photo after seeing animal integration and cover crops and high diversity. Okay, that's the point when I knew I had to do what I call Project Moo. Okay, so we bought some of the neighbors' cows. I didn't kill them. We bought some steers, raised them, finished them. We began Grateful Graze to sell meat directly to the consumer. But we follow the principles of nature. We mimic nature in every way that we do. You know, they never get grassed. There is no Native Americans running around behind the bison, you know, artificially inseminating them. There was none of the Native Americans were given the bison hormones. And if there was one that was sick, they weren't given an antibiotic, right? Nature decided. And that's exactly how we operate ours. No hormones, no antibiotics, no immunizations, no nothing. Our cows have one job only. Give us a calf every year that we wean at 10 months of age. If you don't, she chills, shall we say. Okay. But that way, we're always selecting for animals that are adapted to our environment and our management. So that is the whole nexus of local food, is that we're not pushing to be out of context with nature. So same thing with the hogs. Hogs, believe it or not, did not evolve in a CAFO. Hard to imagine. They were actually out in nature and they didn't evolve on flat black ground. They came from wooded areas, and we use our hogs in wooded areas for impact and then move them on. So they're in a area of our timber for about anywhere from 3 to 20 days, depending on their size. They're getting big this time of year, so they're out there for about 3 to 4 days. They impact the land, take out the non-native vegetation they have a preference for, and they leave the oak and hickory alone. So they're selecting for this sub-story that's causing a problem of shading out our grasses, and they taste great. Next thing, chickens. Let them be. We provide them essentially a mobile tree, okay? That house is safety for them. They perch at night. It's a place to lay their eggs. And after that, they could walk here to Davenport if we wanted them to. There's nothing restricted. And we moved that across the land because what I like to say is you don't like to sleep in your buddy's toilet, okay? Because if what we're doing in modern agriculture is we're concentrating all of the waste because it's too expensive. It's cheap to haul corn from here to Nebraska. It's very expensive to haul that manure back here to where it needs to be applied, okay? So what we do is we typically over apply in those areas, and we've moved the nutrients from here to where they'll never come back again. And same thing with the broiler, the meat chickens. They're on pasture. We move them every day to fresh grass. That's what gives us the nice yellow fat and a great flavor. We raise heritage breeds, takes 9 weeks instead of 6 weeks. So we just try to do things that are right instead of plumping up chickens. So Gabe, I showed you earlier, he was just at my farm here 2 weeks ago. I had a chance to host a Soil Health Academy. And in fact, this movie up here is how I got connected with you, or with the Nahant Marsh Group, is when you sponsored the movie at the Figge Art Museum and gave a little presentation after that. Gabe since wrote a book. So if he wrote a book, that makes you official. And there's a new movie coming out. It's a follow-up, Kiss the Ground, called Common Ground. It'll be on on Netflix, I believe, in about a month from now is when it premieres. So it'll be interesting to see. So now this today is modern agriculture. This is a symbol of efficiency.
Yeah.
The customer wants cheap food, right? This is the cheapest way to produce food. Why is it the cheapest way? It's the least labor, and it's the ability to externalize as many costs as you can and get away with it. There's externalized costs in greenhouse gas emissions, externalized costs in water quality runoff. There's externalized costs in worker safety and lives. I mean, other than management, there's hardly anybody that's a U.S. citizen that works in our modern meat packing plants. The other thing is that, these animals, we're externalizing costs to them. Did God make a cow to stand in the middle of 110-degree heat up to its belly and cow crap all of its life until it's processed into hamburgers? I don't think so. The bison didn't have herd like that, did they? And the bison is what's responsible for making this beautiful soil we have. So we think this whole debate about our cows bad for the environment is wrong. At one time, there were more bison roaming, and they were all grass-fed, by the way, which is supposed to be worse than corn-fed, according to the Farm Bureau. It's not. They just like to promote what they do. But there was more bison in North America than there's cows today. But we didn't seem to have a greenhouse gas emission problem then, did we? So maybe it's not the cow or bison. They're both ruminants. Maybe it's the how. So I wanted to shift gears here a little bit. What does all this mean for climate change? This is an extraordinarily beneficial research study that was done. It was a full life cycle assessment of different types of protein sources, done by a friend of mine, Will Harris, down at White Oak Pastures in Bluffton, Georgia. They found conventional beef for every pound, so let's say a pound of hamburger, okay? Every pound of hamburger you consume, net emits 33 pounds of carbon dioxide, okay? Well, pork's better. It only emits 9 pounds. Chicken's better, 6 pounds. They're not ruminants, okay? So it's a different type of meat. So the big claim is Beyond Burger and Impossible Burger, right? That's great. Look at this. That's like 10 times less bad, right? But let me ask you this. Rich, I'm going to pick on you again. You should have skipped today. Tell me about the residue that a soybean plant leaves behind and its persistence and help to soil quality versus the residue that grass or wheat leaves behind in the field and its help for soil health and quality.
Soybeans don't need that much residue, and it gets consumed pretty quickly because of earthworm.
Correct. They disappear in a matter of time. Yeah. So these burgers here are driven by leguminous crops, such as soybeans, peas, lentils, all of these crops that have a very high or very low carbon nitrogen ratio that just melt away and the earthworms, like Rich says, just take away. Naked soil, what's that like for your watershed?
Yeah.
Bad. See, we have soil scientists. So then just growing the soybean alone, okay, see, that's a positive. But wait a minute, there's this one outlier down here. How is that possible? I thought beef was bad, right? The interesting part is the process of grazing grass causes the roots to regrow. Roots are in what?
Soil.
Soil, right. So every time the roots regrow, it's depositing more carbon into the soil. And that carbon is in a very stable form, turns into, over time, is left alone, turns into a stable humus form, which can have to 50 to 100-year half-life. So that's where that's coming from, because first off, the amount of energy that goes into this for nitrogen, none. Transportation, none. And grazing, it's just simply moving the animals across the land. So all the energy inputs, all the ancient energies taken out of the equation, and we sequester carbon like crazy. So again, not the cow, it's the hack. So I want to show you a little bit about, okay, so what, who cares, you know? I'm going to try to screw this up here, Kelsey, see if we can make this happen. This is a little video I took a couple years ago. This is cover crops and no-till in action. Sometimes people say you can't be prepared for weather extremes. Here's our field right here with cover crops, long-term no-till. Then we're just going to pan across the street right here. Here's tillage. No cover crops. Look at the standing water. Drive along here a little bit, and this is the same slope, same soil type, side by side. So it's if a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video's worth 1,000,000, right? What do you think of that? What do you think of that slide there? Or I mean of that video? How much extra did I have to do versus the neighbor? I planted a cover crop, but I didn't till. Our costs to get to that point in time are about the same. And at that time, I had no applied nutrition. The neighbor had all these fall ammonia out. And where was it going? Somewhere, right? Our nutrients lost. This is a farmer thing, okay? Farmers, I ask you a question and just they don't understand the question. You guys are gonna nail this. Is there such a thing as losing nitrogen?
Yes.
Where'd it go? It's here, playing hide and seek, right? No! There's 4 fates of nitrogen, right? What's number 1 fate? I'm gonna help here with the direction I'm pointing. Goes in the air as volatilization. Volatilizes as nitrous oxide. What? 283 times more potent than greenhouse gas. Okay, that's cool. That's where I lost it. No, that's where you polluted. Number 2, where does it go? Goes to your marsh. It causes algae blooms, death, hypoxia, Raccoon River, Lake Erie, Chesapeake watershed, Gulf of Mexico. Just haven't heard the news headlines on all the rest. Runoff of nitrate, soluble reactive phosphorus also in that runoff water. Where's the next place it goes? Ground, as leaching. Okay, so it's not captured by cover crops or the growing crop, it's leached. So when it's leached, it has 2 fates. Goes into a tile system, it's caught, goes into the creeks and watershed on the surface. Or number 2 is it goes in drinking water. You ever heard of blue baby syndrome? What causes that?
Too much nitrate.
Nitrate. Nitrate takes the place of oxygen in your bloodstream. Here's the 4th fate of nitrogen that you maybe hadn't thought about. Rich is going to help us out with this one too. If you apply excess nitrogen, what happens to carbon in the soil? gets released, yeah, because the carbon nitrogen ratio has to remain in balance. So it fires up the microbial community. It wants to burn carbon out of the soil to combine those two to hit the 29:1 ratio that it's seeking to hit. So what I say is, are nutrients lost, or are they just plain pollution? And as a farmer to say that, probably other farmers don't like me saying that. But the reality is the truth is the truth. And we need to quit being stupid about what we're doing, because excess nutrition in the field. Now, it's hard to know ahead of time. I will tell you that as a farmer, it is hard to know ahead of time what you need for the season, because you don't know what the rain's going to be for the season. You don't know what the microbial release is going to be for the season. But what I want to stop is the insurance fertilizer we use, where we know we could probably grow that crop on 175 units, but prices are pretty good and I don't want to miss out. I'm going to put 200 out. You know, that is the difference. Let's get rid of that first. The first change you can make is always the biggest impact in anything you do. Life, whatever. The first step is always the biggest. Some other fun things, when the whole group was out to the Soil Health Academy, we did some water infiltration tests. This is on one of our neighbors' fields right here. We walked in, we did some infiltration tests right across the highway with our farm. But 1 inch of rainfall, long-term no-till cover crops, diversity and grazing. I can infiltrate 1 inch of rain in how long? 2 minutes and 28 seconds. Now, how hard of a rain is that?
That's hard.
That's a 25 inch per hour rainfall. That's like hose, right? Now across the road, because we till, right, to loosen the ground, 15 minutes, 36 seconds to infiltrate. Because tillage, standard thing. So why do we have problems in our watersheds? Too much rain, climate change, you know, oh, these rainfalls are more intense, we can't do anything about it. Is that it? No, because we're not soaking in the rain where it's landing. And we can. What's the difference there? Difference is just management choices. That's the only difference. So that's, you know, that's why it matters. Okay. So now I'm going to walk you through, you know, once you start down this road of the grazing and regenerative, you know, mindset of land and all that stuff, then you just kind of keep getting wilder and wilder. It's like, what's the next crazy thing we can do? Well, NRCS used to have a program that where you plant pine trees for habitat, right? Government contract, pay you so much to plant pine trees and oaks, and provides habitat for all the deer, because on our farm we had 80 acres of timber and there wasn't enough habitat for the deer, so the government need to pay for 19 more acres to be habitat for deer. And that's a joke, by the way. So this is what it looks like underneath that habitat after long-term mismanagement, which most CRP is mismanaged. Just the facts. It's supposed to be managed correctly, but it's not enforced and people don't do it. It's just the way it is. This is the floor and what it looked like under there. How much vegetation do you see to prevent erosion other than the tree?
Not much.
Not much. That soil is naked and thirsty. So in 2020, they had to go because pine trees are out of context in this area. This is not a coniferous forest area. Never has been. Why are we putting pine trees in oak hickory savanna? Duh. We removed them. But what most people would do is John Deere's invention. Yep, plow that up, right? Reseed it, plant it corn. Gotta have more corn, there's not enough. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, right? No, we're weird. Let's stimulate the native seed bank, I thought. This has been farmed for 175 years. Let's see if there's native seeds present in this soil that we can stimulate through managing the cattle like the bison and bring back native prairie species that are within context of this area. So 2021 had the most amazing crop of thistle. This is a concept called succession of plants, if you're not familiar with it. It's really fun. You can watch all kinds of YouTube videos, read books on it. So it sent, nature sends the healers. And bull thistle are an amazing healer. Taproot, they're solubilizing calcium, making the way for the next stage. Then we put the cows in the thistles. We made our cows eat thistles, right? And they will eat them. And it's amazing. So we're out here and I hay fed inside the thistles to create a balanced diet for them. So you get some grass and the thistle's loaded with protein. Yeah, it's a little sticky to the tongue, but you get hungry enough, they'll eat it. And they did. So we pushed them kind of hard. We asked a lot of the girls to make this happen. There's 2022. How many thistles did you see in 2022?
Not so many.
You know why? We sprayed it, right? That's what you do. You just spray everything. There's been 0 inputs on this farm other than cows and people's shadows. That's it. No sprays, no nothing, no seeding, no tillage. And we've gone to this secondary successional plants in 2022. And that's when Brian first came out here and we were touring around Nahant Marsh because the marsh is affected by what people do on the uplands. Crazy, right? The water from here feeds the marsh. Not my particular farm, but if we could get regenerative practices in Scott County, we'll clean up the water system. Pretty simple. Well, you know how many Scott County farmers are doing this? You know, there's one in Henry County and he's a goofball. Henry County, Illinois. So anyway, now that's what we look like. So Brian had made the mistake of saying, hey, this is some sort of prairie peppermint, or I'm going to mess them all up, so I won't even try. And I thought, so that stuck in the back of my mind. So when I was asked to come here and speak, I said, can you scratch my back too? And so Kelsey, bless her heart, arranged this together. She wrote Brian into coming out. Jess came out too. And we went out there and they threw out the meter squares and did an evaluation of all the plants that were there. They had a short amount of time. We were there about an hour and a half. And, you know, people get excited about certain things, right? Cubs fans get excited if they occasionally win a game, right? Okay, I'm sorry. But I'm not into baseball. I just like to pick on Cubs fans. But Brian got awfully excited about this one here because he was even afraid to say the name prior to looking it up because he'd never seen one before, correct? Or had never seen one in the wild, right? So swamp agrimony. I've never seen a person so excited, right? Am I mistaken there, Kelsey? So now, did I go out and plant swamp agrimony? Where'd it come from? Where'd those seeds come from?
Other ones.
Was it all the neighboring farms that surround me with corn and soybeans where, you know, the deer were eating the swamp agrimony over there in the soybeans and bringing it in and pooping it out here? Oh, maybe not. So what was it? How'd it come? Is that crazy? In fact, take a look at this. Here's the whole analysis Kelsey put together for me and Brian. 351 individual plants, of that 242 were natives. Almost 69% natives. So this was only 5 random squares. This was interesting. The Simpson's diversity index of 0.93. 1 is as high as you can be. You know, it's things like they should be 1 million or something. It'd be cooler. But anyway, 0.93. But I'm still missing native grasses. Now, Brian wants me to seed some. I just want to give it a little time. I'm willing to seed it to bring the grasslands back. But now that you've seen the succession of those broadleaves from July to July to July, to me, that's been such a dramatic change over a short period of time. I'm willing to give it a few more years just to see. Because the DNA in the soil is changing. And this is a whole new path of exploration with quorum sensing. The microbes in the soil, when they are at the proper levels and combination of each other, will actually cause seeds to germinate. That's how seeds know to germinate. My theory is there's gamma grass, blue stem, tall blue stem, and all the other natives that were here in the soil, at least one that's viable, just waiting for the right microbial makeup that will happen because of the cattle integration.
But any of those natives have been there all along and was not thriving, you know, in that pine cover.
Could have been. Entirely possible. Yeah, entirely possible. But it was farmland prior to the pine cover.
Okay.
And it was farmland that was board plowed, because you can see the hump of dirt where the plow,
Yeah.
you know, threw it to the side, and that was the edge of the field to the forest. One of my favorite quotes, and I have to always watch for this. You know, it's not what I did not know, it's the things I knew that just were not so. And I think so many times we get caught up in doing, we think we're doing the thing because that's the right thing to do. May 6th, my wife took this year. This is a cover crop plot we do with the Soil Health Institute. We've done it for 10 years, doing intensive monitoring of everything. See how much dust is behind my planter as I'm going? This is across the road at the same minute. This is conventional farming today. That don't need to be like that. This is what happens. Farm Bureau said, can't help it. Farmers got a farm, and that's just, it creates dust in the spring. 6 people died because of tillage. Think about that. Completely unnecessary. But our Farm Bureau and everybody else is, well, you know, it's just the way it is. Climate change, can't do anything about it. Well, maybe the climate's changing because of what we're doing. So you always got to keep in mind, change is not easy. I love this little cartoon. I saw it the other day. Who's seen this? Right? Everybody that's participating here in the Watershed Coalition, you all want change. Right? Who wants to change? Who wants to change their habits? Why do we have yellow food dye on 2 products back there? Hydrogenated vegetable oil, MSG in those bags. We have cookies with processed yellow colored foods. We have ham out of potato, dairy out of potato. We have regular bread making buns. Do we want to change? Or we just want to go to the grocery store and buy shit? That's the thing. We all say we want change. None of us are doing it. And every one of us is responsible if you eat for how you vote. And nobody wants to lead the change, except for this one idiot down here that's going around and says we need to. But this is how you change the regenerative farming practices. You vote, not in the ballot box. You vote with this. You know, half the country thinks the elections are rigged. Okay, this isn't rigged. You cannot rig this. Where you spend your money says where your priorities are, and will change how the industry is done. So we make it easy for people. We can pick up at the farmer's market. We deliver to your home. Susan Smith was one of our first customers, and she orders from us every week for the last 5 years. We ship all around the country, but we've tried to focus around a 250-mile radius of our farm. It's all on a website. You can order, and we deliver right to people's homes every week. We're not as easy as the grocery store. You have to plan ahead beyond 4 p.m. Okay, you have to plan a week ahead instead of like sometimes I accuse my wife and I of, oh crap, we got to eat supper today. I didn't know that. Okay, it's our choices that are making farming and water quality the way it is. It's not us wanting somebody else to do something different. Yes, we need to do that. But each one of us, me, you, as an individual, you got to choose different, or you're going to keep getting more of the same SHIT. That's all there is to it. So if you want to connect with us, Grateful Graze, my wife does a neat newsletter talking about what's going on at the farm. Last week, there was a picture of a rooster on me when when we're, you know, at the end of the day, like laying on my chest, that was a little awkward, but you get to see everything. But, or if you want to learn more about our farm, those QR codes you can scan. I'll put them back up here at the end. But the other thing I like to do too is we've been blessed to be involved with a lot of businesses. I started California Ag Solutions. It grew into Ag Solutions Network, which now are autonomously managed by a great group of people. I'm still involved with the farm. My wife really does all of Grateful Grays today. And then I have a podcast that I do, talks a lot about regenerative farming, technology, and how we can make regenerative farming the new conventional farming. And it's actually a listed podcast now. It's actually revenue generating, believe it or not. All I do is sit in a chair and ask questions for an hour with people who are really cool. So it's a lot of fun. All proceeds we make out of that, we're putting towards furthering regenerative education around the country and through internships and such. But yeah, I invite you to reach out, connect with us, and tune into the podcast. There's things that are really interesting on there. We talk to entomologists, soil scientists, medical doctors, farmers. It's quite a range. Everybody involved in food, because every one of you in this room is involved in food. So anyway, I hope that was interesting. And I really want to thank Brian Kelsey and for coming out 2 years in a row now. That is my pet project, and I just think it's so cool what's changing in nature back there. Yes, sir.
Talk about your wheat, soybean.
Intercrop.
How you plant it, you're blocking out.
Yeah.
Rows and that's winter wheat, I presume.
Yes.
You plant in the fall.
Yeah. And I've done rye too. Any cereal could be done that, any harvestable cereal grain, winter cereal could be done that way. So I'm looking at triticale for cover crop seed, also winter barley too. But essentially I block off one row of out of 4. And on a 7.5, I've also planted it with paired 10 inches and skip that. So the thing I find is that the best success seems to be leaving the most light. So a friend of mine, Jason Mock, he actually plants 4 7.5-inch rows, blocks off 4 7.5-inch rows. That repeating pattern, so on 60-inch, on 5 foot, then he plants 2 22-inch bean rows in between. Gets better results. So it's not about maximizing every square inch, but it's about maximizing the growth pattern of the plants, because they peak at different times.
You're coming in and flipping off just the top of the wheat.
That is the goal, yes.
So it's left.
The first year I managed to clip off a lot of the soybeans too. Yeah, that's tuition to that something university.
And is this hard red, soft red, or
This area we grow soft red.
and it gets tall enough that you're just
We actually push down the soybean to go. Yeah, so we plant a short season wheat, and then we plant a soybean. We time the planting soybean to where the wheat has just gone into hollow stem where it's starting to rapidly grow.
Yeah.
That's where we time the soybean planting to. But we have to have an early season wheat. The goal is not maximizing wheat yield here. Our goal is to maximize the soybean yield, and whatever we get for wheat was essentially paid for cover crop.
Sure.
Then I don't have a cover crop cost out of it. So there's been lots of headaches to figure out.
And what do you plant for next year?
I just would treat that like a soybean rotation. I'd go back to corn on that. So I'm winding up with essentially 2/3 high carbon crops in 2 years instead of 50%. That makes a big difference. Now in the future, I'm probably going to extend it out: corn, bean, wheat, summer forages, corn, bean, wheat, summer forages, or maybe corn, bean, wheat, summer forages. I want to get to 3/4 high carbon crops. That seems to be the magic spot for maximum soil improvement. Thank you. So yeah.
How's your neighbor feel about being the contrast? Is he starting to change?
Well, first off, I asked her permission
Yeah.
to go on their land and tell him what we're up to and such. And then what I will do, and I haven't had a chance to come in a couple of weeks since it happened, is I'll take the infiltration rings with him, the 2 of us someday.
Mhm.
We'll just go out there and do it together if he wants to see.
Yeah, I mean, but is he starting to notice the difference?
Well, on the other hand, because I'm all non-GMO, I have some weeds.
Yeah.
So they notice that.
Yeah.
I don't mow my road banks because the bird habitat, they notice that. Where people need to get their lawnmowers off the road banks. They're mowing more and more. lawnmowers, but, you know, so the stuff like that, they notice more than the infiltration, right? It takes time, and it's easier for a farmer to adapt to what we're doing that's 30 miles away than next door. Just the whole, whatever, expert
Yeah.
thing, you know, they want 40 miles from home or whatever. Yeah,
The question though is, you know, confined livestock that with our growing population, they argue that we need that to be able to feed the world. I think if everybody adopted this method, we'd be able to continue to feed the world.
okay. That's a huge question right there, right? So I'm gonna break that down into multiple thoughts. I'm gonna ask you some questions back. So CAFOs today externalize a lot of costs. So if you're paying $5 for ground beef at Hy-Vee, okay, you're not, I am at $8.50 on my grass-fed ground beef, but I have zero government help. I have no NRCS, USDA dollars for anything. You know, I purposely took nothing. Okay, and so it's all modern energy, all solar driven, all carbon offset, everything, 100%. So to the degree that conventional beef isn't $8.50, where'd that $3.50 go? Those $3.50 costs were shifted to water, groundwater, air, erosion, were shifted to workers getting paid minimum wage instead of significantly higher, in my place, 25 an hour. You know, they're paid to people from the east coast of Africa working in plants instead of the second generation people working on the processing plant I work with. You know, so all those costs. That's one part. Second part is can you feed the world? We live in a food desert in Iowa, right? You surely have seen the stats. And you can remember them better than me, but we import how much of what we eat. Why? Don't eat it 100 years ago. I mean, 30 years ago, we had tomatoes processed in plant muscatine, right? My wife was on a tomato transplanter, planting tomatoes, you know, 30 years ago. We had these crops, we had orchard crops, we had this huge diversity. Now, can they grow more yield because of no rain in California? Yep. Guess what California is running out of? Water. They're gonna come somewhere. I just come back here. You know. So I think now the other part of your question is corn. How much is for human consumption? Direct human consumption. 3%. 42% ethanol. The rest is livestock feed, and that's counting sweeteners that you got. So you know, what I look at, you give me all of a sudden you give me 42% times 99 acres. How much grass that we could do that? A lot. And do you think ethanol demand is going to go up or down with electric vehicles? That's an easy one, right? You're just registered more electric vehicles than gas vehicles. So what I'm getting at is that it all depends on how, you know, there's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics. Okay, it all depends on how you look at the statistics. But we're responsible for feeding ourselves and our community. We're not responsible for feeding the world. That's never been our responsibility. That's Big Ag's mantra, to sell, doing what we're doing. And they sold us on the planet. You have a question too? Did I see? Oh, okay. Anyone else? Yeah, Rich.
I was at a conference last week and listening to a lot of NRCS top officials. And it's been there's been $19 billion coming through the Inflation Reduction Act on the NRCS to hire 4,400 employees for a 2-year period, 3,000 cooperative employees by Soybean Association, Conservation Agronomists, PCM people like that. My fear is after they spend this $19 billion, will we actually see a change? So I know they're trying to get more incentives for cover crops and other conservation facilities, things like that. I'm not sure that's going to see any. There'll be some change.
I have another theory. Don't hear me wrong. I'm a farmer. I don't think farmers are bad. people. I think we do what we think is best. I just think that farmers in general have been, haven't shared with all of the impacts of things that they're doing. You know, I'm very aware of the impacts of glyphosate, neonics, excess nitrates, all those things, because I've sought it out, right? But they're not getting that information on a regular basis. So my point in doing these things is that I think eventually, once a farmer is given enough of the right information, they will make the change because they're a legacy business. They're not doing this for, well, I'm gonna go get a job somewhere else or see if they're paying $1 better over there. You know, they're in it for life. They either succeed or go broke. So, and they're in it not for just their lives, but their kids' lives and their grandkids' lives. So they want what's best for that legacy. And that's really unique compared to most businesses out there or any employees out there. So I think that's the hope part of it. So once a farmer knows what the right thing to do is, he or she will eventually do that right thing. So maybe that 2 years to kind of get used to what the right thing is might help. So, yes.
Can you talk a little bit more, you're kind of getting into it, but like, what are the biggest roadblocks to other farmers adopting some of the same practices you have?
Compaction layer. This is the only place on the farm that needs tillage between the years. So, just mindset. And honestly, this is not easy. This is hard work. Air conditioned cab with leather seats that cool and heat and a great radio. That's kind of nice. You know, this is when it rained 5 inches last week and you're just swapping across the mud, to get the stuff. It's not fun. So it's hard work. There's a reason why people don't all work on the farm anymore. They went to town to the side, right? So it's just that's reality. So we have to find ways to allow technology, such as the virtual fencing that we're doing with our cattle, to ease the ability to manage and ease the lifestyle, because everybody wants to work easier.
What's a virtual fence?
I didn't have it in this presentation, but I can show you where my cow herd's at right now. And I can actually move them remotely on my phone. It's a technology I invested in and consult with it out of Norway. And what they do is each individual animal has a collar with a GPS receiver and a cell phone on it. So I can set up, like right there, there's a cow herd right now. They have to stay inside those lines. And the green color is where they've spent time today.
So
I can identify each one and move wherever.
You'll get a little shock, they don't go where it's supposed to
One
go.
thing, let's say this table is the virtual line, they'll come up to it, they'll go. And at the 10th tone, they get a pulse. But I'll watch them, they'll go right up to number 9 and then they'll turn. They've got it completely figured out. It sends me an alert every time there's a pulse. And it also sends me an alert that one's escaped. If one decided to run away. I like that versus the sheriff calling. That's handy. But you can track them and all this. I'm getting the hook from Kelsey. Anything else? All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it and all the work that you're doing to make water cleaner.
Right, and I didn't see any questions on Zoom. I think we covered them there. I was watching. I think we were good.
Okay.
But again, okay. Got to stop the recording. The presentation has been and apparently still is being recorded. And again, will be available. There we go, maybe. We'll just cut this out. Thank you all again for coming to the Conservation Corner.